welcome. You're watching Medically Speaking. I'm Meenakshi Upreti. With me, one of the most renowned doctors of the country who needs no introduction, Dr. Rajesh Malhotra. He is the head of AIMS Trauma Center. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Without much ado, my first question: what really is the correlation between COVID immunity and the vaccination? I ask you this in the backdrop of a doctor who got infected twice after getting the jab, sir.
So that's a great question, Meenakshi. And the immunity which we have, every individual has got different level of immunity. Although generally it's the same, but the robustness of the response may vary across the ages, comorbidities, sex, and a lot of different things. Important thing is that a natural infection mounts immunity as well as the vaccination, but the immune response mounted by vaccination is much more robust. And that's because when the COVID infection occurs, it manipulates and overcomes your immune system to thrive in the body. And this has been shown by the research by the University College London. The how long the immunity lasts, even the natural infection during the SARS infection in 2003, some of the people who were infected, they were shown to have circulating antibodies in 2020, even 17 years after the infection. And that's another type of coronavirus. So there may be people who develop such a robust response that they are immune for a lifetime. There are others who may have a very dwindling immune response and may get reinfected. So this is all possible. And that's what I think important thing is, that we should know who are the people who are more likely to have a recurrence of infection. The another cause for recurrence could be the variant, where the virus changes its shape so that it is not recognized by the body's immune system, which cannot prevent it from attacking the cell. Could be another reason for reinfection. A third reason could be if a person's immune response is fully compromised and he has got a persistent infection for months together with COVID infection, which is now being reported as odd cases. These viruses inside their body can mutate and come out with forms which can cause a reinfection on top of a simmering infection. So all those possibilities are there, but fortunately, they are rare and uncommon.
So your answer has really led to three questions in my mind, and I'm going to ask you all of those one by one. First, to the last part of your answer, you spoke about the immunosuppressed, perhaps people who have cancer, HIV, even liver cirrhosis. Now, you said there could be mutations of the virus itself, and they can continue to shed the viral load for months altogether. So when these people, they feel they are cured, because if we go by the government advisory, in 10 days to 15 days, we can resume our normal social life. Can they shed the virus on others, even if, they are in the recovery stage?
So that is a very good question again. See, a healthy person can get out of COVID infection, say about 2 weeks to 17 days, but may continue to shed virus, which is dead virus, which cannot be cultured and which will not multiply in the culture. You will detect dead virus in the test, and that person is not infective. On the other hand, a person who is immunocompromised and has actually virus multiplying in his body, this is a virus which is being shed, but it is live virus which can be cultured. So distinction has to be made between the two. An immunocompromised person may also land up with a mutant within his own body by a prolonged stay of the virus. Because see, we keep on saying when the virus multiplies, it mutates. If it keeps on multiplying for months inside your body, 2 months or 3 months, even there it will mutate, and that may come out with a variant which may again cause a clinical infection, soon enough after the first one, and again have another infection in 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And the key thing here remains, if you can do the genomic surveillance and and find out, you will be able to confirm that these are distinct strains or distinct mutants of the same virus, which will confirm that it has undergone mutation inside the body.
Right. And so what should a person who's immunosuppressed do? Should they keep repeating RT-PCRs? What would you suggest?
So first thing is that they should be treated. One thing is that they must wear mask at all times, because not only they are shedders of live virus, but they could be spreading the mutant types of virus, which the mutations have undergone through their body. Second thing is that, the vaccination has been recommended, or if they are vaccinated, a booster response has been recommended for them by various agencies in order to control the infection. But the thing which is very effective to control viral infection in them is early administration of monoclonal antibodies. Because if the monoclonal antibodies, which are effective against the virus, are given early in the course of disease to these immunosuppressed persons, that can mitigate the occurrence, persistence of this virus in those people, and also emergence of the variant strains.
Right.
And sorry, another thing is, which is very important, they should be isolated from their family members also. And if you ask me, their family members should get a priority in vaccination, because if it is persisting, somewhere his body has to overcome, particularly if the monoclonal antibodies effective against that strain are not available. But the family being vaccinated can also be an important epidemiological intervention.
That's a very interesting point you raised. So not just the recovered patient, but also their family members. Priority should be given to a recovered patient and his family members when it comes to vaccination. But as you rightly said right at the beginning, these cases are rare. So let's talk about something which is more generic, which of course every second person literally in the second wave faced. When you get coronavirus and you recover, many of us had recovered. I'm one of them. How long should a recovered patient wait till they get the vaccination? And I ask you this question very specifically because every second person, got the antibody test without fully understanding what it is. I was one of them. And we look at our antibodies and I said, oh God, I don't have any antibodies. I didn't wait for the 4-month period. And we just went ahead and got vaccinated. Is that the right approach or not?
So the right approach is that, you want to vaccinate so that you can half the benefit of infection. Let me put it. When you got infected, it was like the first dose of vaccine. Or if you already had one vaccine, it's the second dose of vaccine, because the challenge of antibody has occurred to your body and your immune system has been geared to respond to that. So that's number one. Number two is, it has been the reinfection puts the period between two infections at 100 days, right? Which means that only if a person shows symptoms of COVID infection after roughly 100 days, some people say 90, some say 102, but 105, but 100 days is a safe limit. So which means the period which you are supposed to get protected by the first infection is roughly, say, about 100 days. So which would mean that a 3-month period after infection should be a reasonable period, although there may be people who may be immune for a year and some of them for lifetime. But as a public health measure, the 3 months is the time when they should go ahead and take the vaccination. Now, about antibody, I would not worry too much about antibody in a person who's immunocompetent. If you are a young, healthy person like you, if you don't have a comorbidity, you should not worry too much about antibody, because what they are measuring is not really the protective antibodies in the real sense. So what you are measuring is not a really predictor of whether you are protected or not. The other factor which people forget is the T cells. Now, the T cells are the main force which fights it. Let me tell you again, there are 4 layers of immunological protection against the infection. The first one is the antibody. The second one is the B cells, or which get converted into what we call as plasma cells, which make these antibodies. The third is the T helper cells, and fourth is the T cells, which are the killer T cells. So killer T cells are very important, and right now they are not effective ways to measure them. If you it depends on whether you have more bullets or you have more soldiers. The best will be to have more soldiers, which are T killer cells, with adequate bullets, right? But then if bullets run out, a greater number of soldiers will overcome the enemy even in the arm-to-arm combat or hand-to-hand fight. So T cells, don't forget the T cells, because the antibodies are only ammunition. The real fighters are T cells.
Right, but generally when someone recovers, with of course all the news coming in, there was a lot of fear psychosis, and I would like you to reiterate for the benefit of our viewers. So, are you saying a recovered COVID patient need not get an antibody test right away? Perhaps they can still wait for about 90 to 100 days before they get vaccinated, because there is genuinely a lot of misinformation amongst the general public and a lot of youths who are going ahead right after their recovery and getting vaccinated because they think, well, vaccines are available. If they are available very easily, which they are readily through our apps and mobile phone itself, should we just go ahead and get vaccinated, or what should they do?
So first thing is, if you had COVID and you recovered, you must remember that we have no effective medicine to fight this virus. Steroids are just preventing death from COVID infection. So there is no drug to really effectively counter the virus. There are some drugs we know which reduce replication. So anybody who recovers because of his immunity and supportive medical services in case of severe infection. So you have a competent immune system. Remember, if you give a trigger too early, when the first one response has not weaned off, you will not get as good and as robust a response as you need, as what is intended. On the other hand, if you delay it too long, we have seen people who had infection after 6 months of the first infection. That means those were the people which either in 6 months their immune response had weaned off, or they got infected by a mutant strain or a variant strain, right? So those are the things which will cause infection. Having too early dose of vaccination after COVID infection is not counterproductive, but may not be as effective as you would like it to be.
Right.
Right. So I think wait for 3 months and then get it. 3 months period is because definitely till 3 months you are protected. It's unlikely, we will not call it reinfection if you develop COVID within 100 days or within 90 days. And on the other hand, delaying it beyond 100 days, we start getting concerned, particularly if a new mutant, God forbid, comes in the meantime, then you may not be so well protected.
And so, since everyone's talking about the third wave, is it really impending? Is it already here? What really is the status? Because everyone is really worried about it. Also, many doctors, including you, have also said in the past as well that the third wave is not going to be as dangerous or as effective as the second wave.
Absolutely. So let's have some facts straight. One, epidemic is not yet gone. Two, virus has not yet been conquered, and it will not get conquered easily. If from the earlier version from Wuhan virus, it went to the circulating virus of D614G, and then it went on to Delta. So we don't know what form it will take. So there's always a risk that it could come back. That's number one, in a form which could escape your own immune resistance mechanism and as well as the vaccination. The number of surges or waves are known. UK and USA are going through the fifth wave. The fourth wave. The Japan is going through the fifth wave. Many countries like the South Africa or the Bangladesh are going through third wave. So the point which you made is valid. That maybe, say, if we talk about Delhi, maybe the next wave will not be as big as the second. But then there are other states which are already seeing the surge. The Kerala is seeing half the number of total national cases. So for them, there's a wave going on now. So what I always say is think nationally and globally, act locally. So for every district, every local region, every state, every area has to have its own strategy to act upon it. But you have to keep on watching what is happening in USA, what is happening in UK, what is happening in Japan, what is happening in Israel. Vaccinated people getting affected. So they are ahead of us, which doesn't mean that we necessarily have to go through the same fate which you are going through, because we can learn from their experience. So you have to keep watching what is happening in Kerala, what is happening in Maharashtra, Karnataka, Odisha, because eventually, suppose a new virus strain comes in UK or USA, it will come to India. People will travel. The people will travel also from the high incidence rates states. The 13 states have got districts which have got very high positivity rate. When the people intermingle with others, they are going to spread. So nobody should feel secure that, my state has got 2-digit numbers, I need not worry about it. That's why the strategy has to be locally relevant.
Yes, locally, but of course, keeping an eye what's happening nationally and globally. And since we speak in a very myopic and global form, let's talk about Delhi. Towards as we come to the fag end of this interview, we had seen, of course, a really disturbing scene when we had the second wave. No availability of beds. The government can say that nobody died of oxygen, but I think every second person knows the truth. There was a genuine lack of oxygen, lack of beds, lack of ICU beds. Would you say that infrastructure wise, are we better prepared? You, of course, are heading one of the biggest COVID facilities in the national capital, AIIMS itself. Would you say, I'm not just specifically talking of AIIMS, yes, of AIIMS and of other private and public hospitals in the national capital, are we better prepared if we see similar numbers like the second wave?
Absolutely. I totally agree that we are much better prepared. Even each individual hospital is better prepared, I'm sure, because we are a country with very competent healthcare professionals. Our healthcare professionals are very good. And all that we need is a good infrastructure, which has been augmented after the first. So I'll give you an example. The jumbo centers in Maharashtra, which were actually almost defunct, just in anticipation, they are being activated. I think every state is making provisions for ICU care. There has been thrust on pediatric care. The state like Kerala, where there's a surge, the central team has gone and told them that you must augment the ICUs, you must augment the pediatric ICUs, the pediatric care. So nobody wants to go through second wave again, no doubt about it. And that is why we are definitely mentally and infrastructure wise, we are much better prepared. We have had time to build up our infrastructure, and I'm very sure that two things. One, that the herd immunity is being approached, so that is one reason why we may not have such a big surge, and I'll come to that again. And second thing is that we are prepared.
Wasn't there almost a discardation of this whole idea of herd immunity? There was a lot of controversy around.
So let me clarify that. One of the reasons we caught off guard in the second wave was because after first wave, the sero surveys showed that there was a very high level of sero positivity. That towards the end of the year. But two things happened. One, that the immunity weaned off gradually. At that time, there was no vaccine. The naturally acquired immunity, as we know, some people say it lasts 6 months, some say it's 9 months. The natural immunity weaned off. And second thing is that a variant emerged. And that's why there was this much of lag between the first wave and the second wave. The same thing could happen, except that now we have vaccine to boost the immune response. So sero positivity by itself will not protect you throughout the life. So sero positivity, if today we are at 80%, we are protected, but maybe not 6 months later. And that's why we are talking about eventually after vaccinating everybody, we are talking about booster doses. That's the thing. And second thing is that a variant strain has to be kept in mind, because a variant strain can affect people, even those who are seropositive and who have already mounted one's immune response against this, and they can still get infected. The third thing is that a lot of people who are either vaccinated or immune because of their previous infection can get infected, but they are asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic. And there's a very high risk of these people spreading the infection around. That's why it is being insisted that even if you are vaccinated, wear mask, be careful in closed spaces, because you could still be infecting others.
All right. So last question then, since we are back where we started, to the point of vaccination. You yourself had authored a paper where you spoke about how it's the elderly 50 plus who are more susceptible, and they should get the first priority in getting vaccinated. Most of that population, more or less, getting covered in the coming days as well, at least metropolitans. Now the focus seems to be on children as well. Would you say, how important is it for children to get vaccinated? Today itself, we have, of course, Poonawalla, who's spoken about their vaccine for children. Then there's Zydus Cadila also. There are a lot of, participants, contestants who are coming in this field as well. What would you say about children, their immunity, and the importance of vaccination towards the end, sir?
That's a great question again. And I'll tell you one thing, we talk about that this pandemic will eventually become endemic. And you know what endemic means? Endemic means that the virus is in the society like AIDS, HIV, or hepatitis. Those viral infections are persisting in our community. So it will become localized. It will not kill so many people. Its mortality will become less. So it will be like infection. People used to die because of polio also. So its mortality will go down. So eventually what will happen is, as I see it, when the children go for vaccination, possibly they'll be vaccinated against the COVID also, because rest of the population would have been vaccinated, and then everybody will learn to live with the COVID infection. About now, I don't think that and a lot of people have expressed this, I don't think that the children are particularly at risk, because most of these children have already been infected. Children do not get that sick with it. Only those children who have got serious medical problem, they are to be protected, just like elderly with multiple comorbidities, they have to be protected. I don't think the children are at risk. But the problem with children is that it is now being said, let's talk about this. It is now being said that the Delta variant is as contagious as a chickenpox. And you know how chickenpox and measles outbreaks occur in schools.
Yes.
So the problem with the children is that in schools, the children will not comply with masks, they will not comply with social distancing. So the reason for vaccinating children is not that we are thinking that, they will get infected and land in ICUs. It is that they are much more likely to spread it rapidly among themselves and then bring it home and spread it to the people at home. And that is why we need to protect them. And that is why all this work about the mortality rate in children with COVID is very, very low. ICU admission is very, very low. So we are not worried about their welfare. We are worried about the welfare of everybody around them and the control of the pandemic becoming a challenge.
Yes, of course, I can say that personal experience as well. My son recovered within days, whereas the rest of us took, I don't know, some of us took months altogether and still have long COVID symptoms. But thank you, sir. Thank you, of course, for joining us on NewsX. And this has been a rather riveting conversation. I've taken longer time than I had thought myself. But it was, of course, a very informative discussion, and I hope it also helped all of you viewers. Of course, the message coming from the doctor here: wear your mask, do not throw caution to the wind. Even if you get vaccinated, it'll save you from hospitalization. But as the very first question and answer took us, I'm going to come a full circle and end with the same. That doesn't mean you can throw away your mask. You get some immunity, you're not going to get hospitalized, but contain the infection, don't spread it to others, follow all COVID protocol. Thank you for watching.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.